You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account, from NVDA to VIX, and everything in between. If it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back. It is Friday, January 30th, time for your final Hot Options Report for the week. And man, it's a banger out there on the street. Markets getting hit, new Fed chairman potentially, and of course, metals getting annihilated. All of that leading into a spicy day on the street. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as on the network upon which all of you folks are mainlining these days. Remember, if you want to check out the pro, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn all about that. And of course, you should be checking out our friends over there at the Hot Options Report. .com. It's literally the name of the show. You can't mess it up. TheHotOptionsReport.com to check out all of the flow we don't have a chance to get to. It's only a 10-minute show after all. So let's get rolling. Was it a hot day on the street? I think you know it was. Over 750,000 contracts just to break into the top 10 today. That is a pretty spicy meatball. That gets us to our old pal Meta. Meta selling off pretty hard today, closing 716.5 off $21.81, or nearly 3%. So they gave Meta a lot of love and now taking some of that back. Interestingly enough, if you bought those pars earlier in the week for $11, you still went out plus money, even if you rode them all the way through the close today. I don't know why you would, but if you did, you're still up money on those. Meta putting up over 750,000 contracts for the number 10 spot. The hot option in Meta today, not the pars, not the 710s, but the 720s, changing hands 24,000 times today, listeners, for an average price of about $2.11. Let's get paper. Might have been selling these, in which case, sounds like that was a pretty good trade. As we keep climbing to the number 9 spot, was the monster climbing today? The answer was yes. MSTR having a rare day in the green today, up $6.52, or about 4.5%, to close at 149.71, putting up 775,000 contracts for the number 9 spot out there today. The hot option in the monster, 33, nearly 34,000 of the March 160s. Once again, we're going out there to March into the 160s, looking a lot better now than they did yesterday. Average price for these, though, $9.18. So they're not giving these away. Worth noting, there is some OI on this strike, so it is potentially closing. We'll keep an eye on these. But we got till March as we keep climbing to the number 8 spot. Was the number 8 name climbing? The answer was no. A lot of red on the screen today, listeners, including in Palantir, closing today 146.59 off $5.27, or about 3.5%, putting up 796,000 contracts. For the number 8 spot out there today, the hot option in Palantir, 32,000 of the 150s expiring today. Average price for these 58 cents. Now, they were looking decent intraday. We got as high as 151. So you had a moment to take these off for some money, but it was short-lived. If you rode these through the close, unfortunately, not a great end to the day for you. As we keep climbing to number 7, listeners, another name that was selling off today, but after quite the long run to the upside for them. This is Micron, selling off nearly $21, or nearly 5%, to close at $414.88. Of course, they've been on quite the tear over the past week, listeners, so they have some upside to give back. Micron, number 7 today, 846,000 contracts on the tape for them. The hot option in Micron, nearly 41,000 of the 4 halves, the 450s. Average price for these, $2.50. These obviously are looking very rough right now. If you did buy them, paper potentially was selling these. This was opening paper. Looks like 455 was the high. So this name really had a wild day out here in Micron today. So there was a brief moment where these were looking pretty good. Hopefully you sold them, and then you had to sweat a little bit, but then you were looking pretty good the rest of the day. Is the rest of our list looking good? Let's find out, listeners. Number 6, it's SoFi. This name, they just hit 30 not too long ago. Obviously, they diluted the heck out of their stock by selling more around that price. And now coming in today, listeners, post-earnings, looks like the street still not liking what they're seeing out of SoFi, selling off another $1.55 or 6 1/3% to close at $22.81, putting up 1.02 million contracts for the number 6 spot out there today. So only at number 6, already north of 1 million contracts, listeners. The hot option in SoFi today, still going to the upside though, 42, nearly 43,000 of the 23 halves. And again, it was at about 25.5 at one point today. So these were looking a lot better earlier in the session. Now, if you bought these and rode them through the close, obviously not a great trade, but the average price was about 13 cents. So at least you didn't throw away too much money as we keep climbing to number 5. This is another name that's been climbing quite a bit of late, giving some back today. This is Intel, off $2.19 or about 4.5%, closing $46.47. You know, it's been a wild story, and Intel rallying coming into this year, post-earnings, selling off quite a bit, rallying again earlier this week, and now selling off yet again, putting up 1.04 million contracts for the number 5 spot out there in Intel today. The hot option, 52, nearly 53,000 of our old pals, the 50s. Average price for these, 21 cents. Intel flirted with the 50 strike intraday. 49.58 was the high, but no cigar. Looks like paper might have been selling these. This was an opening play, so someone stepping into the fire, blasting away maybe for these 50s for 21 cents. If they did that, congrats to you. You pocketed 21 cents. As we keep climbing to number 4, this is another name that had a rough run this week, and that continued today. This is Microsoft, selling off $3.21 to close at $430.29. Obviously, a pale shadow of its 10% sell-off post-earnings, but it has been very much a rough week for Microsoft, putting up 1.26 million contracts for the number 4 spot out there today. It looks like there was a lot of action once again on that DECE upside vertical. The hot option in Microsoft today, 100,000 of the December 625s. Looks like it was that 575, 625 vertical that we've talked about earlier this week in Microsoft was trading yet again. If we want to talk, dare I say it, relevant strikes, number 3 today was 40,000 of the 435s. Average price for these, $1.31. Once again, if you bought these, listeners, today, unfortunately, not looking great for you if you rode them all the way through the close. Let's keep climbing the list, listeners. To the fruit company at number 3, they had earnings last night. Looks like they were pretty good. In fact, we talked about them on the hot options report yesterday. We talked about the 260s. It seemed like they were looking pretty good. The stock came under some pressure today, though. Concerns about component prices. Everyone's seen the surge in cost for RAM and other components for iPhone. So people were concerned about that. Of course, there was that general sucking sound of the market today, sucking down most of the mega cap names. But Apple managed to survive it and close up $1.20 or about 0.5% to close at $259.48. Unfortunately, as you'll note, that's below that 260 strike we were talking about earlier this week. So those 260s, if you were hoping to get out of those for some money, might have been a bit of a challenge. That was the hot option again today, 163,000 of the 260s. Average price for these, 37 cents. Looks like paper might have been bailing on these, listeners. It was opening a flow. Worth noting, Apple was climbing steadily in the second half of the session. Looks like it got as high intraday of 261.90. So there was a moment where if you paid 35 cents or somewhere in that ballpark for these 260s were looking good. Of course, when we were talking about them yesterday on the hot options report, they were averaging over $4 a piece, $4.14. So if you paid that for them yesterday, unfortunately, was a bit of a rough trade for you. Let's keep climbing, listeners, to number 2. Yes, number 2, I said it. It's NVIDIA. NVIDIA, listeners, selling off $1.38 or about 0.75% to close 191.13 today, putting up 2.9 million contracts. That's usually enough for number 1 easy. Not today, listeners. The hot option on a pretty hot day in NVIDIA, 305,000 of the 192 halves. Average price for these, 67 cents. Obviously, if you roll these through the close and you bought them, not a great trade, but looks like intraday the high was nearly 194.5. So these were looking better earlier in the session. And looks like paper might have been selling some of these. So interesting trading activity out here. You could have done well on both sides of this trade. If you bought them and sold them earlier in the day, and if you sold them later in the day, you could have won on both sides of these 192 halves. As we keep climbing to the number one spot, was this a winner today? You know what it is. It's Tesla, and the answer was yes. A lot going on in the diverse Musk empire, talking about IPOs later this year, SpaceX, AI, everything else going on out there. They're really trying to change the narrative from Tesla away from EVs, which, to be fair, have been plateauing in demand for a while out there, and try to shift it towards AI, robots, things that are a little bit sexier out there right now. And it seems like that narrative working today. The stock closing $430.41, up $13.85, or about 3.3%. Even more impressive when you see the fact that the rest of the market absolutely tanking out there today, putting up 3.67 million contracts for the number one spot on our hot options countdown today. The hot option on a hot day in Tesla, 189,000 of the 435s. The average price for these, $1.83. Once again, if you roll these through the close, not a great trade, but you had some moments intraday. The stock got to nearly 440 intraday. So if you were long these, you had opportunities to get out at much better levels than at the end of the day. And that is going to do it for your hot options report. I hope you had a good trading week out there. Kind of a wild one. Hope you didn't get caught up in some of the metals meltdown that is going on out there right now. Either way, if you're intrigued, you're concerned, you want to learn more about what's going on in the metals or vol or just anything in the options market, make sure you're listening to the full network at the end of the day. And of course, if you want to crunch your own numbers, thehotoptionsreport.com is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday morning for the option block all the way through to after the closing bell. Another episode of the Hot Options Report. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.